Actually, my name is Craig Schwartz, Dr. Lester.
Damn, you're good. I was trying to trick you.
It's my livelihood, do you understand?
It's my head! That was no simulation! Malkovich!
Malkovich, 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 Malkovich.
Malkovich!
Just kidding. Welcome back to Cocktail Cinema. I am your first favorite bartender, your third favorite author, and me and the rubber band are having an amicable breakup.
Oh, no more? That was a short-lived little...
Yeah, I told you it was a short-term romantic relationship.
You weren't
and
lying,
here to
right?
comfort me in my moment of need are Greg and Shasti.
What's up?
Yes. And today, we are going to be reviewing Being John Malkovich. Malkovich.
Malkovich!
So, Being John Malkovich came out in 1999. It is the feature film debut for both Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman. So a couple of titans having their first go at things, and it's definitely a film. It is an impression. So this movie had a budget of $13 million and had a box office of $32.5 million. So
respectable.
Decent return.
Yeah.
Decent return for a first film. That's respectable.
Yeah, first time director. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
And for this to be Kaufman's first, like his first foray into major films, it's a big deal. It's a lot of it's something to be proud of.
Do you think they talked a little bit about putting John Malkovich on the title about that?
You know, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they had a couple of conversations about all the people that are in this movie. Greg, you want to tell us who's in this movie?
I would love to. John Malkovich.
Really?
Malkovich. Catherine Keener, in my opinion, plays the lone wolf as Maxine. She is the most important part of this film. John Cusack and Cameron Diaz play Craig and Lottie Schwartz, husband and wife. Orson Bean is Dr. Lester. Mary Kay plays as Florist. Charlie Sheen as Charlie Sheen. Yeah, I like that part. And Byrne Piven, Jeremy Piven's dad, as Captain Merton.
Lester of Lester Court. Yeah. I never knew that.
Cool
That's
stuff, right?
something,
Yeah.
I mean,
Digging.
It's definitely a hometown film then, right?
Who's digging Piven?
Yeah. All right. But I'm gonna need to have a drink before I do this speed summary.
It's understandable.
So today, folks, we're actually doing a personal recipe of mine. I call this the Being John Sangria, just because I'm bad with names. So what you've got going here is a half ounce of brandy, dealer's choice, a half ounce of triple sec, an ounce of pineapple juice, half an ounce of OJ, and we did about 2 ounces of, you can use Sprite, or today we use the lemonade Sprite, the new one, just to try her out. And then another about 2 to 3 ounces of Pinot Noir. Normally you do a heavier or a meatier red wine, but John Malkovich really enjoys Pinot Noir. So, in honor of the titular character, there is your Being John Sangria.
It plays well too. It is kind of a dark noir film, huh?
You could say so.
It's really something.
Yeah, that wine is very forward. If you want to mix it up, Shasti, get some of that fruit to the top. I like to float my sangrias, but it's not really the best way to drink them. They just look really pretty. So what we do in the business is we just stick a pen into your drink and we stir it up. No, I like to float my sangrias. They're very pretty looking, but it is a very impractical way to drink one. So now on for the second sip when everything's... There's the flavor I was looking for.
There's a flavor.
There we go. I'm actually really happy with that. I was concerned a little bit about the lemonade Sprite, but it blends. It gives it... We didn't add any lemon juice, so it gives a little bit of that extra citrus.
Not getting extra sugar from other places. It's called only coming from one spot this time.
Yeah. Not
Easier
bad
for your body.
Like I said, red sangrias tend to be a little bit heavier just because you're using a cab or If you want a real secret of the business, get yourself a port. Get yourself a Sandman, and only use like an ounce at a time. It will elevate your game like a motherfucker. Like a mother.
You want the extra element of the game. They use all the extra stuff that they didn't use the night before into pouring your sangrias at a bar. Sort of. Burst
Kind
your
of.
bubble.
We like to marinate our
That's
stuff.
like the slow cook, or the marinade. It's always better the second.
Oh yeah. That marinated fruit, drunken cherries, drunken oranges.
Yep.
It's just fermenting to more booze.
Right. It turns the sugar. Yeah. It's great. All right. So now that I have a little bit of an adult beverage in my system, time for my speed summary. Okay. John Cusack and his really stringy hair is married to Cameron Diaz, and he's a failing puppeteer. He gets a job on a really weird staff, and he discovers in his office there is a portal into the mind of John Malkovich. Over the next hour, you will be confused and bamboozled, and you will watch two people technically be kidnapped. And then at the end, the old people get what they want. John Cusack's wife becomes a lesbian, and John Cusack is left alone and trapped in someone's mind. It's very confusing. Stick with us. Have a drink. It's going to be a fun one. All right.
Well, you put that pretty well. You know, you cut all the main shots and points of this one. But before,
I had to.
I don't know. There's so much that goes into it. Like I said before, Catherine Keener as Maxine, when I said she was the main focal point of this whole movie, outside of being John Malkovich, it's because she's thrusted into a certain type of love triangle between John Malkovich and his wife, played by
The incomparable Cameron Diaz.
But she's not the Cameron Diaz you would know and see. You know, she's coming off of some of the movies that she's done. She's very stringy. She's weird. She's
This is like right after like Cameron Diaz in The Mask. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
and
a few years later. So-
right around the time of like something about Mary too.
Yeah, exactly.
where
yeah.
she's like the love craze, like everybody's
She was
chasing her.
a sex icon in that
Yeah.
day and age.
Yeah, she's always the love interest.
So for the stringy like animal rescuer who has a chimp who wears a diaper as their
Right,
their son
yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's a good jumping off point for me at least. This film is a lot of clutter, and I thought that the chimpanzee, the talking parrot, the house where he sleeps, she's always doing something, and there's animals everywhere. I thought that is kind of the beginning story of their lack of passion in their own relationship. You know, I think that's kind of evident up front.
Yeah.
And that they're both kind of looking for something more. She's trying to get his ass out of bed to go get a job. He finds a job on the seven and a half floor. It's
Well, I mean, before we go any further,
see what I'm saying? It's cluttered. It's cluttered.
Yeah, there's I think so. This is 99, and there's a right in the beginning of the sexual revolution. So I know I used it kind of as a punchline earlier, but there's a surprising narrative in this movie that it's an unspoken narrative about sexuality, and I think it starts with her pets. I think because in the 90s, transsexuals and even to some extent gays and lesbians were still seen as kind of weird and strange. Our introduction to her as a character is her raising a chimpanzee, a ferret, a parrot, and there's like another weird animal, and it gets like you're on board with her character being this strange. And then when she says, "I think I'm a transsexual," you don't like that is not the focus of the sentence.
Yeah.
For me, I don't think, and there's really no way to prove this unless we talk to Spike or Kaufman,
Charlie, yeah.
You know what I mean? But really, I think just from a writing standpoint that there's no connection there at all. I think it's that they live in Manhattan, and the story you get shot out of John Malkovich's mind on the curb by the Jersey Turnpike.
Yeah.
They have to get back to Manhattan. It's like you have neighbors. There's people stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
And Manhattan, more than anywhere. I think it's almost like they had to write that in when he ties up his wife in a cage and she's screaming. It just becomes normal racket like any other day of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way to tell that, but I was thinking that this time when I was watching.
I mean,
was
the neighbor is
maybe
definitely
they're
calling him
just
out,
like,
be like, "Shut up,
giving plausibility to the fact that he locked
Nobody
his
came to save
old
her.
lady up. Yeah, in the apartment when there's neighbors above you, below you, left and right.
Yeah, they can hear everything.
But it's interesting.
1999 as well. I mean, this is like RuPaul. Has been coming up through there, so it's not that it's been shown away from, but this might be the first or one of the only times it's hit the silver screen.
Yeah.
To kind of portray that, and the animals, I thought that you were going in a certain way, but then it kind of turned into my head like interspecies erotica.
No. I mean, we're looking at the time and who's writing. Like Charlie Kaufman is known for his big brain, like galaxy brain ideas, and I think it's entirely possible for what Shasti said and what I said to be his motivations equally. Like he could have been thinking about both.
Like
he's that kind of guy.
Yeah. That's what that's the fun part about analyzing these.
Oh, absolutely.
It could be like a character thing or just like a ploy to make the storyline more plausible.
a plot hook. Yeah.
And he's known for stacking stuff on top of stuff.
Kind of like those apartments.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Jersey Turnpike thing cracked me up every time. At least they stood.
They stuck by it.
Stood by that. John Malkovich, like for half the movie, is sitting outside of his shitty car, like waiting on people to fall out of the sky. But it was stuck the entire way. Whether it be his girlfriend, the woman he's in love with, some schmo that he just sold $200 worth of a trip to John Malkovich's mind from. He was always there for them,
Right.
I suppose, I don't
He was
know.
always there for them. The only
Most of
people
them-
he was there for
Right.
were coming out of John Malkovich.
Yes. Say it again.
Coming out of John
Moving
Malkovich.
on.
So yeah, this movie is bonkers.
Yes.
So, have either of you seen "Sorry to Bother You" by Spike Lee?
Jones? No, Lee. No,
Spike
no,
Lee.
no.
Yeah. So the first half of that movie reminds me a lot of the feeling of the first half of this movie, where everything is so somewhat familiar, but it's almost like the sets themselves cross the what is it where something's almost too human, uncanny valley. So the set, the world that we're living in crosses that it's too real but not quite real enough feeling. So it reminded me a lot of that, but you get that right off the bat with the puppets, because puppets naturally are kind of in that uncanny valley area.
Yeah, I feel like that's like Kaufman's.
Very much
'cause
so, yeah.
He's eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Like, that's his whole thing, is like between reality and like what the mind is capable of.
And the
And
variance
this
in between.
totally just jumps in to like beyond in between consciousness and like what your actual receptors in your brains are doing. You know what I mean? There's really no way to justify any of it, even though they break it down. Like when Lester's pulling out the book, and showing Cameron Diaz like he breaks it down in the movie in its own terms. Like we talked before, like this movie makes its own terms, says to hell with how any other movie's constructed, and it makes you conform to that. Like
It's absolutely. It holds to its own rules, and it's kind of like how Asimov had the, I think it's the 3 rules of AI that or the 3 rules of technology. He always abided by those rules, but he would find ways, like he would find loopholes in his own rules, and Kaufman's really good at that. This is a firm truth in this reality, but this is how we get around it.
And that's kind of, I'll segment off of that as far as his puppeteering goes. In his opening kind of moments, where he's by himself sweating, leaning over this one guy who's obviously resembles him.
Yeah.
He's doing somersaults with a pup, as a puppet. that doesn't happen. You can't you literally can't cross kind of stuff like that.
Well,
Am I wrong? And then he just
he does it.
backflips
He
and
does it
back
with
up.
Malkovich's body.
I mean, well, that's what I'm saying at the end. But I mean, as far as pushing what's real and what's not, I mean, those crossings of strings really can't go.
Yeah.
And so you're upfront and personal with him saying this movie is not going to be feasible. You know what I mean? It's not. It's playful. It's fiction. It's doing things that you never would think could be done for film.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
that's how I kind of took it. At least for this movie, because I know there's some haters out there. That's one of the parts that I liked about this movie is the undone, the over the top, the pushing the limits that no one really has touched on. And like you brought
Absolutely.
up that dance at the end, you know, but I think it correlates throughout the entire movie. Excuse me.
Absolutely. And it I mean, we've watched movies from some really good writers and directors. Like we've seen a couple of Coen movies, obviously Robert Rodriguez and Carpenter, people that just know their
Coppola,
craft.
who was like the
Coppola.
biggest proponent of this movie to actually get produced.
Really?
Yeah, Malkovich said that Coppola hit him up when he was in France and he had just flown back, and he's like you said, Spike Jonze' first movie, and he said, in my opinion, this is somebody who we're all going to be working for someday.
Really?
Like, including himself,
that's
not
high-
including
that's
himself,
high
but how he
praise.
said it to John,
Yeah.
like to get him on board with the film.
This is kind of that kind of gives that impression of like this is a director who's here to stay, and that's saying that you're saying like before he signed on for the movie.
Yeah, that was like one of his like main proponents. Like he said he was getting on a flight from LA to go to France, and that's where he alluded later that like he was taking his kids to school one morning or something.
Right.
I don't know his situation at that time, but that's what he said, and he said that he was flying there and he hit up his production partner, one of his oldest friends in the world, Ross, Jim Ross or something like that. So
Okay.
I don't remember his name, but he's like, I don't have something to read on this flight, which is out of the ordinary. And he's like, oh, I've got something for you to read. There's a script about you. Yeah, like that was the first time he read the screenplay, was on a flight and needed something to read, and he was so intrigued by it. And later in that interview, he says, it's like Spike took out a lot, or Kaufman took out a lot of the jokes, like mean, nasty jokes about him, not thinking that he already read the screenplay by that point. And it was kind of like, why'd you take those out? Like that, if I'm going to be on board with it, that's the shit that should be said.
Yeah, he did trying, for as pretentious of an actor that Malkovich is,
yes.
that shows a fair amount of integrity. Being like, no, leave that stuff in. That's what makes it real.
And he's like classically trained. Like
theatrically trained.
He is like the stuff they talked about.
You can tell in the way he projects.
And that's the thing. It's like, imagine even if just any of us were actors, like forget being accomplished actors, just somebody handing you a script that's written about you.
Yeah.
It has to be the weirdest. This movie's just weird in so many ways.
Especially on a lot of the stuff that they touch on during this movie. I mean, like when they go at the end where they're kind of going through his psyche or his subliminals, with like him in a corner, like
his memories,
that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know. He's got to be comfortable in his own skin enough to, first off, let this movie be named like being me.
Yeah.
Well, he understands
Second
fiction
off,
too.
yeah.
Where he's like, it's a great piece of fiction. I didn't even look too far into those.
And second off, being able to play himself. Third off, being able to play himself through other people's eyes. Fourth off, being able to look at himself through other people's eyes.
Fifth of all, having Cusack pretend to be Cameron Diaz, infiltrate his body, and have sex with Maxine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in Inception, beyond Inception levels of Inception.
Yeah.
That's the thing that stands out to me in the movie. Is
Same with me, dude.
Like, what's the worst part about, or what's worse than being home invaded? Is your
Your
mind
body.
being invaded.
Yeah.
What's worse than that is your mind being invaded while you're in your own home. Which the first time that happens, he's like in his home eating breakfast, and it seems just like the most and it's not even about like how he eats his English muffins and orders his periwinkle towels. It just shows you, like, especially at that time in '99, you know what I mean? Like, internet was a thing, but it wasn't like as like now you like. There's so many celebrities who aren't even actors; they're just like. Internet personalities, whatever. But it's like it becomes so like invasive on that level that I feel like people who aren't who weren't alive before the internet. You know what I mean? They don't really understand like the weight that this has.
Yeah.
You get shot out of his mind, and you have to get to a payphone to call for a ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
think invasive is the right word for this film. That's like you mentioned the uprising of his character and stuff. I think that's why I love this movie so much, is because of the uprising of every character that we see. It's not just John Malkovich. It's not just Cameron Diaz. It's not just Catherine Keener as Maxine. I mean, everybody is switching roles and growing so much in this hour and 50 minutes that I'm left. You said bamboozled. It's perfect, but the triangles that are I don't know. It's one of those. I don't even know how to explain it. But there's so much growth,
going on.
so much growth
So
in
much going
characters and then the weird kind of almost alien-esque part where there's a fleet of old people that are trying to invade his next of
Like
kin.
reverse
It's-
cocoon him.
Like this movie for me is one of the most original films that have ever been done in our time.
I'd say
At least.
ever. Yeah, it
You
is
know,
one
and,
of the
and
most
it will not be
original films
redone because it takes too much risk, and no actor besides John Malkovich, I don't think would ever have that like invasion of mind, body, soul, and psyche. You know, I mean,
it's
why I love it.
two things really quick. The first is that again, I will continue to compare this to Sorry to Bother You because it is so whacked and it is so original that I put both these films kind of on that same shelf, which is hyper. I really loved Sorry to Bother You. Not as big of a fan of this movie, but it's just because it didn't speak to me. However, I'll also say this movie has so much to say about sexuality outside of what we've already talked about.
And it's not just the transsexuality.
No,
it
is very specifically the home invasion.
Yes.
I'm going to avoid a very specific word because it'll get us demonetized. But when your body is invaded by another human being, there's a criminal term for that. You know what I'm talking about. This movie is very much about that and how it affects the mind, how it affects your view of yourself, and how it's basically John Cusack invading Malkovich's body and being that. Yeah.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in? I'm dying. Right. You said home invasion, invasion of oneself. That's another part of this film I think that is so crucial. Is that not only are they invading somebody else, but by doing so, they are looking inside their own being.
Yeah.
It's a very mirror-esque kind of movie, looking at yourself and looking at other people and looking at both the differences and similarities that are surrounded by it. So there's like love, there's passion, there's hate, there's jealousy. These are all like core feelings, core, call it what you will, sins that everybody kind of goes through to get to their ending point. And it doesn't always work out for everybody, but they're always looking to grow, even in the wrong ways. At least they're moving forward.
People grow in the wrong ways a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
I think the only person who doesn't grow at all is Maxine. And I wanted to pose. Okay, so I was gonna ask you because the way I see her, Maxine's a grifter. She's always looking for the next score, and sometimes that's just for personal pleasure, and sometimes it's for capitalist gain. We'll say. So she dumps. She refuses to go out with John Cusack.
He's never attracted to her,
and then she's kind of attracted to Lottie,
but only through John Malkovich.
But yeah, and then she's like hyper attracted to her through John Malkovich because she says out loud, she's like, "Have you ever seen two people at the same time look at you with lust through the same eyes?" And that's what attracts her. And then that's overcome by John Cusack being able to control the body and do what she wants.
Puppeteering.
So they're able to do it on the table and then make him eat an omelet off of it.
Yeah.
And
he can do what he wants.
It's just she's a junkie. She's just looking for the next best grift, the next best high. So I think she's lying at the end of the movie when she says she's actually in love with Lottie. I think it's a bald-faced lie. I think she knows Lottie would have killed her.
Okay. I'm gonna go a little bit before that whole thing works out, where actually John Cusack turns into John Malkovich's character, and he writes off acting. He is now a puppeteer. He is the main puppeteer.
Yeah.
And like they're all pumped about that kind of shit. And he's going on and on. And
It's like a decade flies by in 10 minutes.
What's his name?
It's 8 months specifically.
Is
It's
is
8
that
months.
all the
Yeah.
all the awards?
The whole movie takes place
Sean,
over 9
Sean
months.
Penn
Yeah.
is like
It's just funny because he grows all that, the hair from here down back to like his shoulder.
It's very like a graphic pops up 8 months later,
Gotcha.
and then they've
Hell
got
yeah.
the interview.
But that whole sequence, where it seems like, they show the last 8 months period on the TV that he's so pumped to watch, and she's Maxine is just setting up the baby area, nesting, whatever. They turn and say, she's kind of fell off with her husband. This he doesn't bother him a bit,
Yeah.
until he has all he wanted, and then realized that it was only Maxine, and he never really wanted Lottie. But Maxine only wanted Lottie because there's a puppet of Lottie in that bed
In the crib,
where she's kind of coddling or whatever, and she's so sorry. You're right in the fact she's a grifter, but I think you're wrong in the fact that she's not growing.
Fair enough.
I don't think she's pigeonholed herself enough into one corner to not have a way out, and now she has fucked up so bad on not just one relationship, 2 relationships, 3 relationships, and her own relationship with herself. That's when she's able to kind of overcome at the end, where it's like,
I can see that. I can totally see that.
it's interesting.
I think
It's
your
an alien
interpretation is probably more accurate to the script, and I'm being a little too emotional about it.
It's a very emotional movie.
It is, and it's. You really can't like anybody in this movie except John Malkovich.
They're all whiny little assholes.
Yeah, they're
the entire
terrible
movie, they're all
people.
whiny. Even the fucking
Horrible.
monkey's whining.
Okay, the monkey has a reason. The monkey has a traumatic
Ulcer.
flashback.
He's got an ulcer.
Nobody in this movie is likable as a human being. Everybody who works in the office is a fucking asshole.
But everybody wants to be
Except for
John
Octavia
Malkovich.
Spencer.
That's the
Octavia
fun
Spencer
part.
in the very best cameo on earth. She's the person who stops the elevator
walk
the first
you
time
through
and pries open the elevator doors like a blink and you'll miss it moment. But so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. This is 99. Gosh, I didn't know she'd been acting that long, and it's probably just my own ignorance. But yeah, I was.
She
very
hasn't like
impressed to see
aged
her.
at all.
No, not at all.
She looks the same. Man.
She looked great. But yeah, this you can't like anybody in this movie. It's so it's I love writing like that. So I'm very surprised I don't like this movie.
What's funny about that too is they pack your main characters with very likable known actors. Cameron Diaz, very likable.
Yeah,
John Cusack,
John
up until this
Cusack.
certain
Yeah.
point, until you get into the 2000s, where he gets a little bit weird and cryptic and stuff. He's a very likable guy.
Yeah.
Kathleen Keener, she's been that like
Yeah.
toyish, strong woman.
I loved her
before.
in it.
Yeah.
She's my favorite character.
Have we
She stands
seen
for
her-
mayhem, and I just stand back or fucking get engulfed in that shit, man.
Have we seen a movie on this show that she was in? I feel like we might have. If nothing comes to mind, nothing comes to mind.
No.
But I feel like we might have. I'll do some looking, and I might tweet it out. But yeah, sorry to interrupt. It was just
No. I mean, like I said before, in many episodes I talk about characters. Like that's what I look for in a film: character growth, analysis, and the setting wasn't really there as much, except for that. That's why I loved the dropping of the Jersey Turnpike, because it creates setting right there, and it's like Fall from God kind of thing. So,
like a third of the film takes place on that turnpike.
and Malkovich talks about that. It's otherworldly. It's alien-esque. It's this, that, and the other. He's like the
A
secrets.
simulation.
That was no simulation!
The secrets of this film are already put right in front of your face. Like the things that we're thinking about, he's thinking about. They're thinking about.
Yeah.
They're
Everything is very laid forward for you.
and it's a nice grasp. It's linear. It works well, man. I don't know.
It
I
does.
know you're not a huge
It does.
fan of this film, but
Okay, I hated this movie. I hated it.
let's get to the grits
this
and
was
gravel.
the first time I'd ever seen this movie, and it will be the last. But and then like this is I'm glad I've had so much practice at it because I am able to separate my emotions and say this is a phenomenal film. I just hate its guts.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those moments where like there are people in my life who I want to punch their lights out, but I think they're wonderful human beings. This movie is wonderful, but I want to punch his lights out. It's so it just doesn't speak to me. And I can't tell you why. Because I like movies like this. I like weird shit. I like all these actors.
I think we're like kind of flipping the script on both of our shits on this movie. You know what I mean? Because we're very opposite and equal
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
level. And for whatever reason, I do like this movie. Do I think it's weird and obnoxious? Yes. Do I think it was necessary to be done? Yes. I think it's the only film of its kind, and I think it's going to be the last film of its kind.
That's
why. That's why I tend to. Yeah, that's why I'm going to go this route.
I think you would like Sorry to Bother You.
Okay.
At the very least, the first half.
We'll look
the
into
movie's fucking wild. The
first
and we
half?
will cover it. Yeah.
All right,
Well, I mean,
all right.
both. It's basically two different movies, but we'll talk about it. Down the road. I'll put it on the list. But I keep comparing it because there are so many similarities in style, and I think if this movie had not been made, then that wonderful piece of art would not have been made. So I have to appreciate it even more, and it burns what's left of my soul to do so.
I have very few hairs on my butthole left to burn, says
I have to give it props because it is absolutely wonderful, but I hate it.
All right. All right. All right.
So I think I've talked about all the stuff that really spoke to me. Is there, when you watch this movie, you guys have seen this more than a few times, right?
Yeah.
When you watch this movie, is there one thing that really stands out to you that might change my mind?
No, I know your mind's not gonna be changed. I'm not even gonna try to do that. I will say as a final thought, though, I mentioned this to you earlier, but this is my favorite movie. ... to show someone when you're just hanging out movie day and it's like, what should we watch? Well, have you ever seen Being John Malkovich? No. It's like that's 90% of the times I've watched this movie.
Okay.
And I've a dozen times now of just like
see some shit.
and it's not even about like at the end of it like convincing you, Josh, to like the movie or convincing whoever I'm watching with to like the movie. It's like, do you know John Malkovich, John Cusack? All right, watch this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it's just like it's your mind's blown. It's not like book club time. Let's sit down and talk about it. It's like, all right, we're gonna feel like fucking weirdos even trying to analyze this movie.
Honestly, that's the best part. If you're gonna watch a movie with a group of people, the worst part about watching a movie with a group of people is keeping that group of people quiet. And so this movie
Shuts everybody
messes
up.
with their heads enough where you can actually enjoy some time
Yeah,
to yourself.
absolutely. Most of this movie, I usually watch movies from my bed because I'm a lazy American. I got out of bed. I got off my bed and stood in front of my TV for most of this movie, just going, "What in the fuck is going on?" Like,
Stopping to text us. Like, wait.
Every time I did that, every time I text
And
you
you
guys,
never
I
do.
paused the movie.
I was like, just wait another like 15 minutes.
I don't know.
It's still not gonna make sense, but just wait.
If this is the only movie for you to do that, and I think that's gonna be I think that's a win.
Yeah, it's a win.
I think that's
It's
what they
one of my
wanted to
book.
get across. I
Most
think they
likely.
wanted to.
I feel like we
twist your
defeated
brain.
It made me
Josh
feel
and-
so. They defeated Josh.
We beat the final boss.
Oh man, it made me so uncomfortable.
Point.
And I know that's part of what they wanted to do, so I also have to give them props for that. Like you accomplished at least one of your goals with me. And I kind of wonder, since it is a Kaufman film and Spike Jonze is like, he's known for his wild cinematography. He does music videos mostly. And like short films.
Like really.
No, he did
well
the
known.
Buddy Holly.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
fucking did Buddy Holly for Weezer.
And he did the sweater song too, Undone.
Yeah.
And he just
Beastie Boys.
yeah, he like 3 or 4 of their songs. So he's known for his wild style, and it's intended to be noticed. And Kaufman likes to make you not know what you feel. And I definitely don't know what I feel. I watch that movie, I feel dirty, I feel uncomfortable, I feel confused, even though I know exactly what happened. I'm still confused.
He saw John Malkovich with a nice rack of lamb. So he hates the.
There you go. There it is. There it is, sitting
I
on the
will
piano.
say, the scene with Charlie Sheen, the first one, where he's like, "Are you sure you're not going crazy?" That is the best scene in the movie, and I absolutely loved that.
All right,
Those 2 minutes were amazing.
All right.
They were amazing.
What if there's some crazy love witch? Hey, let me get their number when you're done with it.
Yep, that one. That one. Oh man, alive! This movie's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to, and casting, I think, is a big part of it too, because you talked about being uncomfortable, this, that, and the other, and they gave you a couple people that you're comfortable within John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, and Catherine Keener. Like those are comfortable names that you've seen.
But they just like mutated them almost.
I know it's
you
the
know?
most fantastic. It's like
I
it's
love that
It's,
aspect
it's
alone.
total dream.
It's very dreamlike.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, like not in the way we normally talk about dreamlike. This is like an action. Bro, you want to hear about the dream I had last night?
Yeah,
like
and
that
how
kind of
inner
fucking
turns
wild.
and twists, and then everybody's doing each other, and
then I got locked in some 9-year-old's body for the rest of her life.
No, seriously, and like now 1,000 old people are like going to go invade this 9-year-old's brain.
So
The end.
getting back to our roots, an almost fan theory space, speculation time. So we know that the captain took over John Malkovich's body, and that they are going in like 40 years, or when the girl turns 44, they're going to jump into her body. So John Cusack is stuck there forever, right? My two questions are: does John Cusack jump to the next person after that and regain his agency, personal agency?
I don't think
autonomy.
No.
Or
Well,
does he die?
they all go to the next vessel together,
Yeah.
almost as like one person.
It's a system. It's
At that
it's
point.
yeah.
And then they
like
sprawl.
Lester is already however many people went into his vessel to go to the next. So it's all of them. So if he's you asking the question from like a selfish standpoint as a puppet master, no, I think he's turned off at that point. He's not just they obviously use his skill like as a puppet master to manipulate Malkovich's body. At that point, if there's 100 of us going into Malkovich, maybe you don't have that power.
But also at the end, they also encapsulate the puppet that they are. Like as so now, Charlie Sheen has a bald head and it's a comb over because he's now in somebody else, and I'm sorry, Dr. Lester has a full head of hair because he had one before, which was a bald one before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's in a weird way. They are their own puppets. You know what I mean? You can take the puppet out of the person, but the person out of the puppet, you can't. And you can always create and recreate yourself.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was weird, how they try to put so many people into one vessel.
Yeah.
But it kind of stood out where they were kind of spreading. And at the end, they were talking about, I can make you live forever.
They literally made their own rules for all this.
Seriously.
So it's kind of
that's
like
what I'm
that's
saying.
why
It's like-
I didn't want to like
That's why it's the most
break it down
one of
too
the one of the
much.
best movies that.
Well, that's
like,
that like I'm not gonna ask like those
I don't think it's the best
rule breaking
cinematic
questions.
movie. I'm saying
My
it's-
questions are all about Cusack's character, because he's the way the last shot is framed. He is very clearly the focus of the real story. So, trapped in that girl's body, assuming that he never regains his autonomy, and he's trapped when they jump, and then trapped when they jump to the next one, and then trapped when they jump, he's in hell now, right? So the moment he jumped into that girl's body, he's eternally until the heat death of the universe.
You can't pick to not go with them the next
But
time.
no,
Because
But he
also
also
be-
never gets control of the body
Yeah.
even for a day.
Yes, because they're all waiting to that group of old people where they bring in saying you can live forever. That's who they're looking at. So now what they talked about before about shoving him and doing unconscious
Yeah.
is the same, because now there's like 60 of them and he's the only one there. They're waiting for her to like whatever come of age into a certain point where they can actually jump to vessel or
Yeah.
actually be okay with it. He's already there and he's trying to.
But he's stuck. He's locked. He's already in that.
He knows he's gonna die there.
He's in a straitjacket inside her mind. Like when she's looking at her parents, ironically, Lottie and Maxine, he's like, look away, look away. And he has no control over the body. And he just has to suffer.
Yeah,
So he gets tormented for the rest of his existence.
as he should be.
I agree. I agree. It's just I am not afraid of anything. Like,
I mean, that's I think
that is the only afterlife that scares me.
I mean, that's the whole thing, like invading his body for so long, becoming obsessed with it, and
Yeah,
Controlling him for
It's-
almost a year. Yeah,
it's,
that's
it's
right.
like
Yeah.
a be careful what you
And-
what you
and-
wish for type thing.
and playing God.
Yeah.
You know, as a puppeteer, he had that. He had that.
The God
he
complex.
played above.
Yeah.
You know, and he was able to pull strings, and now he's bound by them. You know. Boom.
That's the thing that like Lester doesn't tell you is like
Yeah.
there's 20 centurions or whatever that have passed it into me as a vessel before
Yeah.
coming. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
not the thing that's like clear. You know, it seems like a great idea to be him until you realize like, oh, I would just be like
one of many.
this
Yeah.
stage of many stages before me. And
Yeah, it's like you said, you don't want to dig too deep into it because it will start to fall apart.
Yeah.
Because it's not designed to be picked apart and analyzed like that. So, in the spirit of respecting Kaufman's wishes in that way, any last thoughts before we move to taco ratings?
No, I think we covered them all twice.
I just want to say with like the mirror analogy that you brought up before, it's curious that like first time Cusack goes in he discovers the door and goes in, Malkovich, in that scene he's looking in the mirror. You know, he's eating his English muffin and coffee at first, puts his dishes in the sink, goes to the mirror, grabs his keys, looks in the mirror. That's when you
Yeah.
realize who you're looking at, but I thought it was perfect
Yeah.
that you brought up
Yeah.
Well,
like
and there's-
a mirror version of yourself.
It's that plant
through someone
payoff.
else's
And
eyes.
There's two
And
main
you
breakage
realize,
of mirrors.
Yeah, but you realize John Cusack is John Malkovich when John Malkovich looks into the mirror, and that's an obvious statement. But
It's a great plant and payoff because it's reversed. It's the obvious point that reinforces the more subtle point that Greg has been talking about.
Yeah.
That's a really really good point. I had not thought about that. So, let's all be the Fozman for a minute. Greg, taco rating.
Tacos. Love this movie for what it's worth. Like I said before several times, first, before, first, after that. There's never going to be another one like this. That's why I'm going to sit at a nice solid rating of 85. Characters are glorious in this movie, and I'm a Cusack fucking fan. Anyway,
Gross Point Blank is the last, by the way.
85 solid. I mean, I think they changed the game as far as mental capacity, maybe is a good word for it, without being a thriller, without being
It's a
being kind of
suspenseful one, yeah.
kind of a dark comedy. It's got thriller-esque tones, and as far as shading and light work as well, as far as that goes, 85.
Alrighty, let's all be Shasti.
Give it an 87. I give it an 87 because of, like I said before, playing it for someone who's never watched it, and it doesn't matter if they like it or not.
Yeah.
From the start.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when you put on a movie, you're like, I want you to like this movie too. It's my favorite movie.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite movie. But for that, it rates higher than some of my tops. You know what I mean? It's the shock value. It's Maxine.
Yeah.
It's Maxine. It's like I put on the movie to be Maxine. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
And for that,
You want to get laid twice?
you guys know me. I'm fucking. I got a little bit of toxicity in my personality. That's why I love this movie, because it's a little bit toxic. And
Fair enough.
I fuck with it.
Fair enough. I give this movie an 88.
Nice.
88.
88.
I think you would say like.
He's
58.
respectful.
No.
He
No,
knows, he knows what
I-
it's worth.
Oh, it's an 87. It's an 87 on. So the audience score, 87, 93 from critics. Well, this critic is giving it an 88.
Oh yeah.
I respect the quality of the product. I really do. It's just not a product that I ever want to consume again.
Well, some things you don't have to eat twice.
Yeah,
I was gonna say we've all had those meals like that was weird. Probably will never order that again.
yeah. Like this is
Like a pocky chip or something.
Well, I mean, I'll probably wind up doing that again. This is a meal where it's like I can tell all of the ingredients are fresh and very expensive.
You're eating your potatoes and vegetables with your protein. You're cleaning your plate.
It's out of respect. I see a meat and potatoes kind of meal. I would devour. This is caviar. I'll eat caviar.
Some weird
once.
hybrid caviar.
It's weird caviar that looks like John Malkovich.
Beluga whale caviar.
No, this is like mercury.
Whales are mammals, bro.
This is like caviar
That's
with
like what I mean. Beluga whale.
this is like caviar with mercury in it or something.
So like it's gonna poison you.
Exactly. It's gonna mutate.
But
toxic.
watch it and respect it, and maybe you'll like it.
And
I just don't.
Maybe you won't. And I'm gonna sit back here and just enjoy the fact that you watched it anyway, because you have to watch it.
I agree. Now, the other thing you have to do is you have to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification if you're over here on YouTube, and get notified every time we drop a new video. What might we be dropping, you ask? Well, it's funny that you ask. We've got Cocktail Cinema coming at you every Sunday. We have a couple of other podcasts, including the Fozcast, where everybody's favorite host, sorry, Shasti, everybody's favorite host interviews.
I'm barely a host.
Interviews some of your favorite
The
people.
talent, I know.
Talent. You can also see Hot Takes, where I torture myself for your enjoyment, or Thesis Statement, where I torture you with my pretentious thoughts on everything entertainment. That said, I'm not allowed to forget this anymore, and we didn't plug it one time. I wrote a book. It's a book called Reaper, Reaper. It is a young adult fantasy novel and the first in a series. You can find it on Amazon.com, BarnesNoble.com, anywhere online you buy your books. If you just look up Josh Price Reaper, it's the one with Stonehenge and the moon on it. You'll be glad you did. Boys, address the audience. Let them know how you feel.
Feeling pretty good here. As you know, as you've seen, we've kind of revamped a little bit. We've brought in the masonry and got some new things going, making it nice and homey for you. We're on the up and up, We're just trying to make it better for you, make it better for us, and we got a lot of things coming down the pipe, and we're super excited as always. So tune in.
Oh, yeah. I would also like to point out that our favorite producer, the master of the mix, the king of the keyboard, produces, mixes, and often performs and writes the music you hear, including the beat you're listening to right now. Show him some love by following him on Instagram and Twitter.
You guys find me Shots You Got Bands on Twitter and IG as well. Yeah.
With all that fun stuff out of the way, we'd like to say a big shout out and a thank you to all of our patrons. If you'd like to become a patron and pledge your soul and your monthly money to our cause, you can head on over to patreon.com/sippableopinions. There you'll find several different tiers with several different layers of perks. If you don't want to become a patron, every bit of interaction helps. Share this video or this podcast with your friends. Obviously hit the like button and write yourself a comment. It doesn't even have to be about John Malkovich. Tell us what you think of a grilled cheese. With that said, my favorite phrase, say goodbye.
Damn, you're good.
Security!